All right, folks. Yep, that's right. It's a victory week, okay? Because you know why. You want to know why? You might have to turn down your volume because you know why. The sixth time. 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 Pittsburgh Steelers did what? What did we do? We won. No more, better yet, you know what? We didn't win. We destroyed the Jets, okay? All those Jets fans that were saying, oh, this is going to be the game for Aaron Rodgers to get right. This is going to be the game now that he got his boy, he's going to be able to do something. Where? 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 What? Who? When? Where? How? Why? Didn't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. We didn't see it. We didn't see it. Yes, I'm going to talk my stuff today. I've been trying to be humble for these last few weeks, but you know what? I think I have to just take a little bit of steam off, because I see a lot of people talking a lot of smack about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you know what? It's okay because you know why? We're going to get everything right with this episode, as well as a bad alert that I forgot to talk about, but we sort of do have to talk about because that team is going to have to make a decision fairly soon, as well as Saquon gets his revenge, just like Michael Myers. The Commanders crush the Panthers. We already knew that was going to happen. Haason Reddick finally returns to the Jets. The 49ers are struggling. The Ravens and the Bucs played last night. The Lions and the Vikings, that was a great game. Great game. Phenomenal game. Jarrad Mayo is receiving backlash for his public comments about his team. And we got to talk about trade speculations. Yes, we do have to talk about it simply because the trade deadline is only, I think, 2 weeks away. So we're going to be hearing some stuff. We are. You already know what I'm getting ready to say here. You already know what I always say every single time, okay? I am your host, Kale, okay? Your GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it because I got some things cooking in the future, okay? I am all these things and more, okay? I am your background your chief meteorologist, chief bag meteorologist, chief head of the table. You already know what I'm getting ready to say, okay? We got a loaded episode. Maybe this might be an hour episode. Who knows? As well as we got to talk about college football later into the week because there's some tough conversations that need to be had about college football and some certain quarterbacks. All of this and more, but don't you worry about that because guess what? This is the 42nd episode of the greatest football podcast you could possibly listen to on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. So guess what? On 3, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league, okay? Now, I know it's been a while that we haven't talked about college football, but I'm going to make it up to you guys because, I've allowed myself just to give myself a little bit of a break. Just watch college football. Don't really talk about it, but just watch. And, yeah, don't worry. That episode will be coming out this week. Stay tuned. But don't care about that, okay? Because we got a bad alert, okay? I didn't even do the... See, man, there's so much going on. You would not believe it, okay? So, ALIM MCNEIL, defensive tackle for the Lions, inked a 4-year, $97 million extension. He gets a $10 million signing bonus, $28 million guaranteed at signing, $24.2 million a year, and $55 million total guarantees, okay? Now, when you look at his stats last year, 32 tackles, 5 sacks, and 30 quarterback pressures. Now, when we look at this, right, he is somebody, and I've been looking at film and all 22 film, lately, he is somebody who creates a lot of pressure, right? You're talking about somebody that, once that ball is hiked, he is very close to the quarterback. He is getting as close. He is probably one of the first people that is getting to the quarterback every single time. And mind you, he's being lined up, inside, outside, whatever. He is doing it and he's getting through successfully. So, all in all, the Lions have been continuing to take care of their own players and valuing, their own players. So, all in all, his quarterback pressure rate has actually increased since coming into the league. So, I understand that there's probably some people that are saying, oh, this is a ridiculous contract. Why are they paying him all this money? When you look at the tape speaks for itself more than what his stats will. Because even though, yes, it is hard for defensive linemen to rack up a whole bunch of sacks, the way that he's able to create pressure and the way that he's able to close to basically collapse, the line and the pocket, that's a lot. And not a lot of people can do that on a consistent, season to season, game by game basis, honestly speaking here. So, who's to say, he may have another breakout season this year. I would not be surprised. So, all in all, congratulations to him and his bag alert. Now, let's get into something that we have to, why there's a certain team, and there was a lot of people that were saying a lot of stuff, and trust me, I was definitely one of those people that felt, what, I don't think this is going to be the game. I had a bad feeling leading into this game, but that bad feeling was not real. Because why? The Steelers, once again, do Steelers things. So, if you guys do not know, the Steelers did defeat the Jets, okay? And in doing so, this was Russell Wilson's first start. Now, before we go any further, before we go into the stats and everything else, let me be very transparent. When Russell Wilson started out, I was like, this isn't looking good. He looks rusty. He looks really rusty. I'm talking about he wasn't making the throws right, and it just looked horrible at first. But then once he started to get into a rhythm, oh man, you talk about somebody who was making plays left and right. The play action game was amazing. The rollout, amazing. The deep throw, amazing. All of the things that we have been looking for and asking more of, Russell Wilson did it. And he did it at a very high clip and a very consistent clip, which is great. Now, before we get into everything else, we do have to give credit where credit is due, and that is to Justin Fields, because, Justin Fields, and I sort of have to give him his flowers for this. Justin Fields has handled this entire process like a true pro. I've never seen anybody that is able to be very honest and very transparent in his performance and basically say, hey, listen, I know the reason why I haven't been, I know the reason why I'm getting benched, basically because I've been playing my best. That takes a lot. That takes a lot for you as a player to admit that, listen, yes, we have been getting the wins, but my performance, my personal performance, has not been the best to where I want it to be. And that takes a lot, because granted, we had another quarterback, last year who, was basically in a tiff because, he wasn't the starter. And they asked him to be the backup, and he said no. He didn't want to suit up to be the backup. And I remember when that report came out, because it was Steelers Now. It was Alan Saunders and Derek Bell and Smitty. Shout out to Smitty. If you guys don't know, Zachary Smith, really, really great podcast and whatnot. They were probably like the first three people that was really saying something about it. And at first everyone was like, no. Kenny Pickett was downplaying and whatnot. But then lo and behold, it started to pick up. And there were more and more people that were confirming the story that Kenny basically refused not to do it. And, for Justin Fields to have this experience is sort of like a breath of fresh air, because he's been professional this entire time. He hasn't been someone that's been, having a temper tantrum and, basically trying to puff out his chest and whatnot. No, this is great. This is professionalism at its best. This is somebody that you would want in your locker room when there's friction, when there's tension, when there's problems. That is what you want in your locker room. You don't want someone like a Kenny Pickett who walks away from competition, who walks away from, these scathing reports that he basically was just like, nah, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to be a backup. Nope. I want to be the starter. So, But you know what? Let's get into well, you know what? Let's get into the let's get into the quote before we get into the stats. Let's do that. So leading up to the game, Jay Glazer, doing his thing, basically put out, somewhat of a not a statement, but he basically reported on why Mike Tomlin made this decision now, right? So basically this is what he says, and I quote, I want to at least see what I have from him, exhaust all options, and then make a decision down the stretch. He said, I'm trying to win games. I'm trying to win a world title here. I got to see what I have in both. And he also said, look, I went Lone Ranger on this. If it doesn't work out, I'll take the heat. I'll shoulder the blame. Now, mind you, Jay Glazer also mentioned that there were a lot of people within the organization who wanted Tomlin to stick with Justin Fields. But Tomlin, being the person that he is thinking ahead, which is, I'm trying to win a Super Bowl, right? And he has to exhaust all options at the quarterback position to see exactly what he has, which is true, which is very legitimate. Now, I understand there are people that are probably saying, they maybe should have waited it, until after the bye or during the bye. Okay, and you do have a point. But, at some point you have to make a decision. You have to rip the Band-Aid off. Justin Fields has not been playing good since the Colts game. From the Colts game up until now, he hit his best ball. Granted, we were winning, but his personal performance was not good enough. And so you sometimes you have to pivot and make a decision just to see exactly, okay, if this works, cool. If it doesn't, then we can go back to him and, do whatever. So, but let's get into these stats. So Russell Wilson, dangerous, was 16 for 29, 264 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 9.1 yards per attempt, and a 55.2 completion percentage, okay? Najee Harris, 21 attempts for 102 rushing yards, 4.9 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 3 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. George Pickens, 9 targets for 5 receptions, 111 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 22.2 receiving yards per reception, okay? Aaron Rodgers, 24 for 39, 276 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 7.1 yards per attempt, a 61.5 completion percentage. Breece Hall, 12 attempts for 38 rushing yards, 3.2 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Devontae Adams, 9 targets for 3 receptions, 30 receiving yards, 10 receiving yards per reception. Now, when we look at this and more, at first, yes, the Steelers were starting out very slow, very ugly, very sloppy. They were. But as time progressed, they started to find a rhythm, find their stride, and it worked, right? You were seeing production out of Darnell Washington. You were seeing production out of everybody. Honestly speaking here. Like George Pickens was doing his thing. Pat Freiermuth made, definitely one of the craziest catches we've seen, in a while. Najee Harris was doing his thing. All levels of the offense were moving. And it was great. And then on top of that, you had the defense as well. The defense was, doing phenomenal as well. Now, granted, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith didn't show up on the stat sheet, but their presence and the amount of pressure that they was able to create and the way that they were able to collapse the pocket was great. And in doing so, it allowed, for Beanie Bishop to get the 2 picks that he get. And, everybody else to do what they needed to do, which is great. Now, the only problem was Breece Hall was giving the team a lot of problems because of, his ability to double as a receiving running back. And, he was doing his thing. He definitely was. There were points in time where, you would think that this thing was going to get out of hand. There was a time and point where that was going to happen. But, the Steelers being the Steelers, once that second half came in, they locked in. They were locked in through and through. And, they just created, pressure. They was able to make plays. And then in doing so, the offense was, positioned to make more plays and put points on the board, which that's all we've been wanting. Like this production, that Sunday night's game is what I think Steelers fans have been wanting to see, for a while now. I think if Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph or Mitchell Trubisky, if they did just a fraction of what Russell Wilson did on Sunday night, they probably will still be here right now. Most likely. But the fact that they weren't able to do it, and now you have Russell Wilson who's been able to do it, definitely says a lot. Now, pivoting to the Jets side. The Jets side, we have to have a conversation. This falls on Aaron Rodgers. Again, because you have every opportunity to, do the best that you can do. And once again, you fail. And the first thing that you do is you blame the media, saying this is your guys' fault and everything else. Well, let's be real here, Aaron. You have one of the best receiving corps in the league right now. A receiving corps that is a majority of your buddies, your former teammates that you played with in Green Bay. Allen Lazard, Devontae Adams. You have, you have it all. You really do. So I don't understand what the problem is. The time for excuses is gone. It's gone. Okay. At some point, but Aaron Rodgers has to admit that this falls on me. This falls on me. That's all you have to say, Aaron. If you said that, that goes a whole lot further than to just say, oh, well, it's the media's fault that I didn't play this well. And I mean, it's always you guys are always, getting in our way. No, Aaron, no, that's not what it is. And granted, I understand the Jets, they were definitely banged up and people started to get hurt and whatnot. But I mean, come on. Come on. You literally handpicked every single person that you wanted on that offense. From getting Tyron Smith to, getting everybody onto the offensive line, to getting the receivers that you wanted to play with, all those different types of things. And look what it got you. Another loss. And as time progresses, I would not be surprised if there are some players who want out of this situation. Because why? It's a nasty, toxic situation. All around. It's a nasty situation because you have a quarterback who does not want to take accountability, who basically has not shown anything. He hasn't. He has not lived up to the hype or expectation, since they got him. He has been a snake oil salesman to the Jets fan base. He has. Because when you look at it, you cannot tell me that a quarterback cannot be productive when you have a two-headed monster at running back with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. You have a receiving core in Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, and Malachi Corley, and I think and Mike Williams, right? You have all of that on the offense. Then on the defense, you have Quincy Williams, C.J. Mosley, Sauce, Michael Carter, DJ Reed. You have a lot. So again, what is the problem? What is the problem? Who is the main person in all of this? Aaron Rodgers. The team only goes as far as what Aaron Rodgers wants it to go. That's what it is. That's the truth. If Aaron doesn't want to go far, the team won't go far. But if Aaron really wants to put the effort in, then guess what's going to happen? They're going to go far. And even then, when you look at former players like Damian Woody and then even, the former head coach of the Jets, Rex Ryan, come out publicly and basically say like, yo, that is a team, but there's no culture. That's scathing. That's very scathing if we're being real here. And granted, they probably have people on the inside that they probably talk to and hear various different things. But, this Jets team it's sinking. It's sinking more and more and more. And unless they start winning or figuring out something, they're not going to make it to the playoffs. Oh, and I forgot, Devontae Adams. How does it feel? How does it feel to make a decision, once again, a dumb decision, and deciding to choose your friend, the friend that left you, okay, left you. You decided to go back to the person that left you, and now look, you're salty. You're salty. You didn't even really have that good of a game. You didn't. You did all of that for what? Nothing. Nothing at all. So guess what? No one's going to feel bad for you because you decided to make this decision. There were three other viable teams that you could have went to that you still would have been the primary option before anybody else. And that's the Bills, the Ravens, and the Steelers. And I'm not even saying the Steelers just because it's my team. I'm saying it because you know why? There is stability. There is leadership. There is a culture in the locker room. There is no leadership or culture in the Jets locker. It's not, because you have Jeff Ulbrich, who is trying to piece things together. He really is. I have to give credit where credit is due. He's trying to piece things together while juggling many hats. He's a defensive coordinator while being the head coach. You gave the title, well, not even the title, but you gave the responsibilities to the assistant offensive coordinator, and basically made him the offensive coordinator without saying that he is the official offensive coordinator. Like, that's a lot. That is a whole lot to take on. But again, the Jets will be the Jets. Now, when we look at Haason Reddick's situation, he's finally going back to the Jets. Finally, it took him long enough, but he's finally going back and finally reporting to the Jets. The Jets have decided to waive the $12 million in fines, which is, good. And I guess they're trying to work through, an extension and whatnot. But, the fact of the matter is, I don't even know if that's a good idea at this point. Because their season is hanging on a string. I'm talking about the thinnest string you can possibly find. I'm talking about a string that is so thin that the only way that you will be able to look at it is either through a microscope or if the sun is literally beaming on it. That's the only way. I mean, yes, the defensive line, as far as the run defense, has been horrible. And the Bills exposed them for it. And now we sort of low-key exposed them for it. That's not good. That's not good, because guess what? A lot of the other playoff teams, guess what they all have? They have a run game. Now some teams' run game is a little bit more better than others. But if the Ravens were going up against that Jets defensive line, Derrick Henry is going for 200 yards. No question. There's nobody on that defensive line other than Quinnen Williams who would be able to consistently stop him. And that's being as respectful as I possibly can. So, again, making this move and firing Robert Saleh, it hasn't worked. It has not worked so far, and it's going to continue to sink unless somebody in that locker room steps up, takes accountability, and pushes Aaron Rodgers. See, everybody wants to just, walk on eggshells around Aaron because we know how sensitive he is and we know that he has pull and all those different types of things. To hell with it. Because this season can determine, especially if you're a free agent, this season can determine if you're going to get $5 million a year, $10 million a year, or $20 million a year. But again, I'm going to leave that alone. Now, moving on to another team, another matchup that I definitely thought was a really good matchup. The Commanders versus Panthers. Now, coming into this game, everybody sort of knew that the Panthers were not going to win this game. Everybody knew it. But let's just get into the stats before we go any further, okay? So, Jaden Daniels was 2 for 2, 6 passing yards, 3 yards per attempt, and 100% completion. Now, before we go any further, the reason why his stats are like that is because he got hurt. He has a rib injury. He is considered week to week with it. They've already said it's not broken or anything, but only time will tell. But Marcus Mariota, 18 for 23, 205 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 8.9 yards per attempt, and a 78.3 completion percentage. Brian Robinson, 12 attempts for 71 rushing yards, 5.9 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 1 rush of 10 yards or more. Okay, Andy Dalton, 11 for 16, 93 passing yards, 2 picks, 5.8 yards per attempt, 68.8 completion percentage. Jatavion Sanders, 6 targets for 6 receptions, 61 receiving yards, 10.2 receiving yards per reception. Chuba Hubbard, 17 attempts for 52 rushing yards, 3.1 rushing yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Now, when we look at this, Marcus Mariota definitely showed a lot. He definitely showed that he still has something left in the tank. He did. And, for him to be as productive as he was with Jaden Daniels going down, and for that offense to not lose a step, definitely says a lot. And granted, I understand this is the Panthers, and this is basically a game for you to, run up the numbers, run up your stats, and all those different types of things. But, geez Louise. You guys did not put up a fight And granted, I understand that team is, derived of talent on both sides of the ball. It is, but you know, it's only going to get better before it gets worse, if we're being real here. Now, on to another game that we definitely need to cover, and we definitely need to talk about the Eagles and the Giants. So, Saquon got his revenge. He got his revenge. He got his revenge. This is just part one. This is just the appetizer of his revenge, okay? Because, again, for those of you who do not know, Giants had Hard Knocks this offseason / early into training camp and whatnot. And so basically there were a lot of the first few episodes was basically talking about their free agency plans and whatnot and what were they going to do with Saquon. And so basically, there was back and forth between, the GM Joe Shane and Saquon. And, for a while, Saquon was basically saying, hey, I want to be a Giant, I want to be here, all those different types of things, yada, yada, yada. And, the GM basically was like, yeah, I'd rather just let you just walk because, we're not going to pay you this, that, and the other, blah, 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 all those different types of things. And so, in doing so, Saquon made the decision that he made and he signed with, the Eagles. And so far, it's worked. It's worked for the Eagles and it hasn't worked for the Giants, if we're being real here. Now, granted, there's a running back for the Giants right now. I think his name is Tyrone Tracy, Tyrone Tracy Jr. He's been doing well. He has. But I'm sorry. I don't care if you have Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary on the field. They're not going to replace the amount of influence Saquon had on that field, and especially in that offense. Okay? Because when we look at it, Daniel Jones doesn't even look like the same player. Okay? He does not. He looks like he has regressed dramatically, and I would not be surprised if Brian Daboll is trying to figure out, okay, who is a quarterback that I can bring in that I can, build off of and work with. Because, again, going back to, the Hard Knocks, series for the Giants, Brian Daboll was interested in going after Jaden Daniels, right? And, Joe Shane wanted to go in a different direction and whatnot. And granted, they got Malik Neighbors, who Malik Neighbors has been, very productive since being with them. But, Daniel Jones hasn't. Daniel Jones has not been productive. Daniel Jones has regressed dramatically, and he looks like a deer in headlights out there. He really does. Meanwhile, you have Jaden Daniels, who happens to be in your own division, who is going off, who is looking like an offensive rookie of the year and rookie of the year. That's what that's how he's playing. He's playing he is playing out of his mind. Before he got hurt on Sunday, he was doing his thing. He was putting up substantial numbers. Okay. So again, it's bad. It's sad because you know why? Even the owner of the Giants went into the GM's office and basically said, we're gonna have problems sleeping if we don't find a way to bring back Saquon. Once your owner tells you that, you have to go the extra 2,000 miles just to make sure that you will prevent him from even talking to anybody else or entertaining signing with any other team. Because guess what happens? He's going to go and stay in the division. He's going to face you twice a year. And guess what he's going to do? Run you over. And that's exactly what he did. Saquon could have went back out and he could have, gotten more yards and whatnot, but he didn't. He decided to let the younger players go out there and do their thing, which is, definitely respectable. But, there's a lot of questions moving forward with the Giants. And, I think a lot of them start at quarterback and, what exactly they're going to do at that position moving forward. But let's get into these stats, okay? So Jalen Hurts was 10 for 14, 114 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 8.1 yards per attempt, a 71.4 completion percentage, okay? A.J. Brown, 5 targets for 5 receptions, 89 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 17.8 receiving yards per reception. Saquon the Quad God. Barkley, 17 attempts for 176 rushing yards, 10.4 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 3 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Daniel Jones, 14 for 21, 99 passing yards, 4.7 yards per attempt, 66.7 completion percentage. Malik Neighbors, 8 targets for 4 receptions, 41 receiving yards, 10.3 receiving yards per reception. Tyrone Tracy Jr., 6 attempts for 23 rushing yards, 3.8 yards per carry. Now, when we look at this, the Giants did not, do well when it comes to scheming up against A.J. Brown. Because they literally had A.J. Brown, one-on-one matchups. You didn't have, a safety over top or, anything else to help with A.J. Brown. You literally just had one corner going up against A.J. Brown. And guess what happened? A.J. Brown did A.J. Brown things every single time he got the ball. Every single time. Now, granted, Dexter Lawrence has been going off. Dexter Lawrence has been doing his thing. He really has. He was creating a lot of pressure. That defensive line was creating a lot of pressure. They was. But the fact of the matter is, the offense really wasn't able to do anything. They wasn't. And granted, I understand most division rival games are very close. They're very tight. They're very physical. All those different types of things and more. I get that. But come on, guys. Come on. Really? Really? It's not good enough. It's just not. I'm sorry. And even then for the Eagles don't look as dominant as what people think they were going to be, honestly speaking. I just feel like, the Eagles, they are still in the bubble to go to the Super Bowl. But I think they rely so much on their stars to be healthy and to be active to play that, if they're not playing, their chances are slim to none. And then Jalen Hurts does not, I keep on saying it, Jalen Hurts has regressed. He has regressed dramatically. Ever since Shane Steichen has left, he has not looked like the same quarterback, and it is scary, folks. It is very, very, very concerning. Maybe, maybe the next head coach that they get, maybe they can work on him a little bit and, try to refine him and bring him back to what he was when Shane Steichen, was there or not. But all in all, it's this Eagles team, aside from Saquon Barkley, does not look the strongest. It just doesn't. But moving on to the 49ers and Chiefs matchup, okay? So this, I'll say that. Let me just get into the stats. Patrick Mahomes, 16 for 27, 154 passing yards, 2 picks, 5.7 yards per attempt, a 59.3 completion percentage. Kareem Hunt, 22 attempts for 78 rushing yards, 3.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 1 rush of 10 yards or more. Noah Gray, 4 targets for 4 receptions, 66 receiving yards, 16.5 receiving yards per reception. Brock Purdy, 17 for 31, 212 passing yards, 3 picks, 6.8 yards per attempt, a 54.8 completion percentage. Jordan Mason, 14 attempts for 58 rushing yards, 4.1 rushing yards per carry, 1 rush of 10 plus yards or more. George Kittle, 7 targets for 6 receptions, 92 receiving yards, and 15.3 receiving yards per reception. And I have to put this in just two junky nuggets, okay? Kyle Shanahan is 0 for 40 when trailing behind 8 points in the fourth quarter, okay? Brandon Ayuk, he is out for the season with a torn ACL. Deebo Samuel timeline is unknown due to fluid in his lungs and pneumonia. And CMC is trying to push to make his season debut next week. So when we look at all of this in its totality and whatnot, let's just be real here, okay? Well, you know what? I'll do the 49ers first, then the Chiefs. That's what I'll do. I'll save them for last. The 49ers' chances of going to the Super Bowl is over. The window has closed. It has been locked, never to be opened up again, okay? They have, for one, they had a very tumultuous offseason with the whole Brandon Ayuk saga. 1 minute he wants to be there, 1 minute he doesn't want to be there and whatnot. You have the Trent Williams holdout. Okay, cool. Then once everything is resolved, you're like, okay, cool. Everything is going to resolve itself and everything, is good. Peace and restored is back. Stability, all those good things and more, blah, blah, blah. But no. Then Christian McCaffrey is dealing with, injuries and whatnot. And, injuries have basically depleted this 49ers team. It has depleted them of talent. And, if I am John Lynch, I think I have to have a real conversation. I have to have a reality check with myself. And that is, I have to offload some of these contracts. I have to. Because why? Next year, they're going to be taking on a lot of dead cap hits. We're not talking about no $5 or $10 million dead cap hits. We're talking about large, substantial dead cap hits. And the only way that they're going to be able to prevent that from happening is if they have to start trading some people. Now, I'm not saying they have to go on a fire sale and whatnot. No, but, Gravedigger, I'm sorry. Even though Gravedigger is one of my favorite players, he really has not lived up to that deal. Deebo Samuel, you don't know exactly when he's going to be able to come back. And so that right there is a lot. And we all know that Brock Purdy needs his weapons to be on the field. And if they're not on the field, then guess what's going to happen? He's not going to be the same Brock Purdy that we've seen for the last 2 years. This team is banged up. All the way banged up. Brandon Ayuk out for the season. Jawan Jennings, he's hurt. George Kittle, he's hurt. Christian McCaffrey, he's hurt. The only way that they will be able to really sort of give themselves a chance is if they trade for a receiver. I'm talking about a productive receiver, someone like a Deontay Johnson or Cortland Sutton, somebody of that caliber, and then they trade for Alvin Kamara. Those are the only two ways that they will be able to really start to get the respect back that they've been looking for. And then not to mention, there was a point in time where Kyle Shanahan's offense was the creme de la creme. And, for the longest time, people were trying to figure out how to, scheme against it and how to beat it and all those different types of things. But as time progressed, and a lot of the people that were on his coaching staff began to go to other teams and become head coaches and offensive coordinators and whatnot, guess what? People were able to see exactly, okay, how do you pick apart this? How you do this? Okay, we're going to run this coverage when we see, this. We're going to run this coverage when we see this formation and all those different types of things. And so now what you're seeing is teams are able to now pick apart the 49ers offense. They are, and they've been able to do it. Now Kyle Shanahan is at a point where, what do you do? The run game isn't as effective as how it needs to be with Christian McCaffrey. Like they need Christian McCaffrey so bad, it is ridiculous. Because they know that without Christian McCaffrey, they don't have a legitimate chance. Like, reality check here, folks. Let's really be real here and let's have this real conversation right here, right now. The 49ers are not a Super Bowl team. The only three NFC teams, well, 4, if you really want to put them in there, and that's pending if they make any crazy trades or anything. The only 4 NFC teams that you can legitimately say that they have a very high chance of showing up in the Super Bowl is the Eagles, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions. Those 4 teams. That's it. Those are the only 4 teams. Nobody else in the NFC right now, that you can say like, oh, hey, they might be a problem. Now, granted, the Commanders, you could probably sneak them in there. And if they make, if they do make some trades to maybe shore up that defense a little bit more, and then maybe even add another weapon for Jaden Daniels, then you can put them in there. You could. But for right now, the Lions, they're on a tear right now. The Vikings, they're on a tear right now. The Packers, they're the dark horse right now. People are sleeping on them. The Eagles have to get their act together, okay? Those are the 4 teams that people have to be concerned about for the NFC. And, I understand that the 49ers did everything that they tried to do to, bring the, the boys back together and whatnot, but it just has not worked. It has not worked, and this is a fail. And, all the things that they did to get to this point, to be competitive and whatnot, it has not worked. And, it sucks because they had some really great teams. They did. And for them to not win a Super Bowl, pretty heartbreaking. But guess what? I don't care. Now, moving on to the Chiefs, okay? This is what I will say about the Chiefs. the Chiefs have been getting by. They have been getting by. They have not been dominant. They have not been this, crazy team that's just been, dismantling teams, every one of their opponents and whatnot. No, they are not. That game, Patrick Mahomes got carried to the finish line by the defense. If it was not for that defense doing what they did, the Chiefs would have had their first L of the season. And if we're being real here, they should have had their first L a long time ago. If we're really being real here, this Chiefs team, they need to make trades for a receiver. They need their other, offensive players to get healthy. Otherwise, they really don't have a chance of making it to the Super Bowl this year. I'm just being real here. This is going to be the toughest year for the Chiefs to make it to the Super Bowl, because you have the Ravens right now who are on a tear. A tear. I'm talking about the run. They have a top 3 run game and passing game. Lamar Jackson right now is looking like a unanimous MVP. I'm sorry that there are people that are probably, clutching their pearls and, probably turn off the episode and whatnot, but that's the truth. That is the truth. The Steelers, you could probably put them in there. You probably could. As long as Russell Wilson stays productive and as long as that offense continues to put up some numbers, I guarantee you we could be a dark horse. There's not a lot of AFC teams that people really have to worry about, if we're being real here, because a lot of teams either just haven't shown the flash that they've needed to show, or they're just, they've just been dismantled by injuries, honestly speaking here. And, Patrick Mahomes has not had a really good season. He hasn't. So I don't want anybody to mention Patrick Mahomes for the MVP. He doesn't deserve it this year. He does not deserve it. He has not played well. And granted, I understand, he basically has lost his receivers, and now his most productive is a rookie and Xavier Worthy, Juju, and then Travis Kelce. I get all of that, but still, no. And then not to mention, when you have a right tackle in Jawan Taylor, yes, Jawan Taylor, who constantly gets away with murder. Gets away with murder every single time. I'm talking about he was putting Nick Bosa in a chokehold almost every single time it was horrible. It was horrible. And they don't get called for it. But let it be else. Oh, flag on the play. Holding. Nah. No. So, do I think the Chiefs will make it to the Super Bowl this year? No. Do I think they will definitely try to get as close as they can, maybe to an AFC championship? There's a possibility if they make a few trades. But for right now, nah. I don't see it. Now, moving on to the Lions and Vikings. Okay, so Lions and Vikings game was definitely a game that I said it before on the last episode last week. It was definitely going to be a really good game, and it was. It came down to the wire, and, the rest is history. So, Sam Darnold, 22 for 27, 259 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 9.6 yards per attempt, and 81.5 completion percentage, okay? Justin Jefferson, 8 targets for 7 receptions, 81 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 11.6 receiving yards per reception. Aaron Jones, 14 attempts for 93 rushing yards, 6.6 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 3 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Jared Goff, 22 for 25, 280 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 11.2 yards per attempt, and 88 completion percentage. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 targets for 8 receptions, 112 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 14 receiving yards per reception. Jahmyr Gibbs, 15 attempts for 116 rushing yards, 7.7 rushing yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and 2 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Now, when we look at this, of course it was a division rival game, and it was a really good game, but, Jared Goff right now is the second best quarterback in the league right now. And he's behind Lamar when it comes to the MVP race. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't even say behind. I would say they're neck and neck right now. And the only way that, Jared Goff could possibly get ahead of Lamar is if the Ravens start losing games. That's the only way. As of right now, it really is between Lamar, Jared Goff, and Sam Darnold. Those are the three quarterbacks that I would say right now are in the MVP race. And, this was a really good game from start to finish. It was a really good game. This Lions offense is dynamic. It is fireworks. They're putting points on the board. They are attacking you in the ground game as well as, in the air. The Vikings continue to, they continue to do their thing. And granted, as I've said before in previous episodes, this defense for the Vikings has been phenomenal without an all-pro pass rusher. They have a rookie in Dallas Turner who's playing well, Harrison Phillips, Harrison Smith, Brian Murphy Jr., and company. And they've made it work, and it's worked. It's worked phenomenally. So, kudos to them and everything. But, again, this is probably a preview of what's to come, once the playoffs come around. Because I know if this is a matchup again, a rematch in the playoffs, oh man, it's gonna be even crazier. Okay, but we do have to get into a game that sort of not piggyback, but sort of pivots into what another conversation that does need to be had. Okay, so before we get talk about the comments after the game, well, actually, no, we'll talk about the stats first. Then we'll get into the comments. Okay, so Drake May was 26 for 37, 276 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 7.5 yards per attempt, a 70.3 completion percentage. Ramondre Stevenson, 7 attempts for 18 rushing yards, 2.6 rushing yards per carry, 1 rush of 10 plus yards or more. Hunter Henry, 9 targets for 8 receptions, 92 receiving yards, 11.5 receiving yards per reception, okay? Trevor Lawrence, 15 for 20, 193 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 9.7 yards per attempt, 75 completion percentage. Tank Bigsby, 26 attempts for 118 rushing yards, 4.5 rushing yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 4 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Jeez. Brian Thomas Jr., 5 targets for 5 receptions, 89 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 17.8 receiving yards per reception. Now, when we look at this, this was definitely, for it to be a 9:30 game, it was good. It was a good appetizer, as I would call it. It was definitely a good appetizer. It wasn't this dynamic, powerhouse of a game that was, instant fireworks and whatnot. No, I definitely believed and was right that the Jaguars were definitely going to win this, for sure. Just because they have more than what the Patriots do have. And, kudos to them. But the main thing that people are talking about more than the game is what Jarrad Mayo said after the game. And so Jarrad Mayo basically said this, and I quote, according to a New York Times article by Chad Graff, shout out to him, quote unquote, we're a soft football team across the board. That's what he said. I'm going to say that again, but I'm going to say it closer to the microphone. He said, and I quote, we're a soft football team across the board. Now, I understand that every single head coach is different and everybody has a different way of trying to motivate their team and whatnot. I get all of that. But there's just certain things that you keep, private to yourself. And then there's other things that you may have to say publicly just to try to see if it'll get a rise out of the team and motivate the team to be better. And for you to say that the team is soft is a smack in the face to them. Because let me tell you something. The reason why this team is not competitive is not because of the players. It is because of Bill Belichick. We are now seeing, finally, all those whiffs that he have had in the past. His drafting has not been good, folks. Let's be very honest here. There have been very few players on that team that have hit and have been productive players, honestly speaking. And, Jarrad Mayo basically, inherited a broken Patriots team. He did. A team that was derived of talent on both sides of the ball with a rookie quarterback and an inconsistent veteran quarterback. That's what it was. And, Drake May basically did the best that he could with probably, if not the worst, one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And granted, his receiving core are full of rookies and second year and maybe third year players. So all in all, this is this is the ugly side of a rebuild. You're not going to win as many games. You're going to get blown out in a lot of games. That's what's going to happen. But for you to say that your team is soft, that's not good. Even Bill Belichick even threw him under the bus and say, "Yeah, I would have never said that." Like, come on, Jarrad. That's not how you win the locker room. That is not how you get the trust of the locker room. That is not how you do it. This is something that, they are going to have to overcome by drafting better and hitting better in free agency. Because remember, there was a point in time where, a lot of players did not want to go to the Patriots because of the negative stigma that the league, that was basically around the league, which was, it's a very uptight, very, quote unquote, non-fun type of place to be. Sure, you may have a chance of winning a Super Bowl, but it won't be a very enjoyable process. From the coaching to Bill Belichick and what is required out of him, all of that. And, when you have someone like Tom Brady who sort of softens, the hardness that comes from, being with the Patriots, sure, that benefits, when trying to get certain players, but time is gone. Tom is gone. Julian Edelman is gone. Gronk is gone. All those people are gone. So exactly what do you expect, right? And even for the offensive line, what do you expect? It's not like you have I can't even pronounce his name, Dante Scarnecchia again. You don't. This offensive line is not good. It is not good enough. I wouldn't even put my worst enemy behind this offensive line. I would not. I would not be surprised, and this is a Back Row Diamonds prediction. This is a GM with who's currently not on a team prediction right now. I do believe the Patriots' first pick is going to be an offensive lineman. I do. I think it's going to be a tackle because they need tackle help badly. And this offensive line cannot, it has to get better. Because if it doesn't, Drake May is going to get crushed. He's going to get crushed. And you do not want that. This is the time now where you build the team up. When you have the rookie quarterback, on a rookie deal. Because once you start making big boy money, it limits everything moving forward. So they're going to have a whole lot of cap space. They'll be able to bring in different people. But, when you say something like that, it's going to haunt you. It may not haunt you this game, may not haunt you in the next game. But best believe it is going to haunt you. We have to talk about last night's game, folks. That's right, the Ravens and the Buccaneers. The Ravens came into Tampa, kicked down the door, robbed them of their treasure and their ship, and said sayonara. Okay, Lamar Jackson once again doing Lamar Jackson things. Okay, so Lamar was 17 for 22, 281 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 12.8 yards per attempt, 77.3 completion percentage. Derrick Henry, King Henry, 15 attempts for 169 rushing yards, 11.3 rushing yards per carry, 3 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Rashad Bateman, Batman, 4 targets for 4 receptions, 121 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, 30.3 receiving yards per reception, okay? Baker Mayfield, 31 for 45, 2 picks, 8.2 yards per attempt, a 77.3 completion percentage. Sean Tucker, 5 attempts for 29 rushing yards, 5.8 yards per carry, 1 rush of 10 plus yards or more. Cade Otton, 10 targets for 8 receptions, 100 receiving yards, 12.5 receiving yards per reception. And when we look at this, this was once again a very dominant game for the Ravens. It was. Lamar continues to be, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason all in one against NFC teams. He just destroys them every single time he goes up against them. And it shows. Derrick Henry was doing Derrick Henry things. The receivers were doing receiver things. Everybody was just eating. Okay. Last night's game, if that's not a game where you can't say that Lamar is the unanimous MVP, as I've said in this episode maybe about 10 or 15 minutes ago, come on now. Come on now. 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. A 77.3 completion percentage. Come on now. Please. Please. Now, we do have to talk about the other side of things, which was, Chris Godwin is basically out for the year with a dislocated ankle. And then Mike Evans is going under an MRI either today or tomorrow, to determine the severity of his hamstring injury. This is what I'll say. The Chris Godwin injury was definitely preventable. There was a period in time where the game was basically over. And so by then you should have just pulled out your starters. And you should have just, put in everybody else. Like there was no need for them to continue to try to go out there to play. Because all it did was just put everybody in harm's way. And now the Buccaneers are without their two best offensive weapons on that team. And that's not good. That's not good at all, folks, because, Baker and this Buccaneers team, they were starting to look pretty good. They were. But now you don't know how long Mike Evans is going to be out for, and then Chris Godwin is out for the season, and he's an unrestricted free agent. Man, oh man. But this is what I would say about the Ravens, though. Just to be very honest here, and I had this conversation with Mook earlier this morning. I would not be surprised if the Ravens decided to get a defensive coordinator next year, because the defense was very lackluster, towards the end of the game. And granted, I understand that they had the game in the bag, but the Buccaneers were low key trying to they low key had some motion. They scored 16 points in 2 drives. 16 points. They scored a touchdown, got the 2-point conversion in one, and then they did it again. Like, they were very close to starting to make a comeback. That's not good. See, the thing with the Ravens is right now, and I'm going to be very honest here, Ravens fans. I really am. I'm just being honest, not saying this as a Steelers fan or anything like that. The two things that will prevent the Ravens from going to the Super Bowl is themselves, whether that be play calling or lack of execution or lack of adjustments or anything like that, and injuries. Those are the two things. And, last night, the defense has to be better. The play calling has to be better. The communication has to be better. Because why? If your play calling is not good, and if it's not airtight and whatnot, there's going to be somebody that's going to pick it apart. And there's someone that's going to be smart enough to come up with an idea to counter everything that you're doing. So, again, if you don't do this now, it's going to come back and haunt you when, once we start talking about the playoffs and, the Super Bowl and all those different types of things. But last thing I definitely want to talk about, because we are getting into that season where, the trade deadline is coming up. So these are just a few players that, have definitely thought of, but forget about that. These are some players that I think that, could be traded fairly soon, fairly quickly. Myles Garrett, Bryce Young, Za'Darius, Deontay, Adam Thielen, Marshawn Lattimore, Cortland Sutton, Darius Slayton, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, Travis Etienne, and Eric Armstead. Now, for Myles Garrett, simply because, the Browns situation is just horrible. They're not going anywhere, and it's just time for him to be put into a more productive place for him, to have a chance to win. Simple as that. Bryce Young, he just needs to be put in a more productive, scenario for him to be really productive and to really have his skills refined and his mechanics so that he can possibly be another, a better quarterback than what he is right now. Because right now, he's not looking the best. And, maybe if he spends a year under Sean McVay or somebody under that system, maybe he can, come back out and, really show something. But for right now, he has not lived up to that first overall pick. Za'Darius Smith, there's a lot of teams right now that need pass rusher help. The Lions, I would not be surprised if the Lions try to go after either Myles Garrett or Za'Darius Smith. Would not be surprised at all. Now, for Deontay, there's a few teams that really do need a receiver. You have the Chiefs, you have the 49ers and company that really need receiver help really, really, really bad, okay? Same thing with Adam Thielen. You have a veteran receiver who is still productive, who is still able to, to make plays and whatnot. Low cap hit, low numbers, which means low compensation, okay? Marshawn Lattimore, he's still a very productive corner. You may have to do a restructure, with the last 2 years of his deal, because that's when the base salary and the cap hits start to like really skyrocket and whatnot. So, and then not to mention, they're starting to hit that point where it's time for them to go through a rebuild, and they're trying to offload contracts, and those various different types of things. Same thing with Courtland Sutton. Probably is looking for maybe one more big payday, as well as trying to win. Again, teams will definitely be interested in him, but the only problem is, though, that interest will probably come from other AFC teams. The only NFC team that probably will be very interested in going after Courtland Sutton will probably be the 49ers. And mind you, back in the summer, there was a report that came out that, the Steelers were going to try to facilitate a three-way trade between them, the Broncos, and the 49ers. The Broncos were going to send Courtland Sutton to the 49ers. The 49ers were going to send Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers, but of course that did not happen. Now, Darius Slayton, someone who is low risk, high reward, definitely has upside to his game. Not someone who is carrying large cap hit and, very demanding and whatnot. Probably just wants to be put in a better situation. Same thing with Mike Williams. Same thing with Garrett Wilson, honestly speaking here. Very talented, players who are just looking for change, and who are looking for stability, and who are looking to be put in a better place to be, just productive, honestly speaking here. Because, I think Mike Williams will definitely get traded fairly soon. I truly believe that. Garrett Wilson, I think, might be a little bit more difficult, but, only time will tell. Travis Etienne, I think he's definitely going to get traded just because they're using Tank Bigsby more. And I think he's just falling out of the good graces of Doug Peterson. But, he's still a really productive, Swiss Army knife. And, you don't have to give up a whole lot to get him. He's still on his rookie deal. So, that could be definitely a good 1 year, half a year rental. Eric Armstead, very productive veteran defensive lineman, can definitely add that depth that teams are definitely looking for, especially as the season progresses and then we start to transition to the playoffs right now. You're going to need, your defensive line to be good at stopping the run. If your team cannot stop the run, you are not going to go far. But I'm going to end it right here. If you guys like what you were listening, please like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, download the episodes, do whatever you can to interact with the Football Junkies podcast, because why? This is the best football podcast in the world. Okay, now for my TikTok people, yes, the TikTok people, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys so much. Football Junkies pod, okay? Football Junkies pod. Now, when you go on there, there's going to be a link to the YouTube. The YouTube has the link tree, which has all the places, all the I can't even think of the word, all of our places where you can go and interact with our content, okay? From the RSS feed to the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those various different types of places, okay? For my YouTube people, Football Junkies Pod, okay? Football Junkies Pod, okay? Now, as I feel like I'm definitely missing something. Oh, yes. The Instagram. Yes. Football_Junkies Pod, okay? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced, okay? It is together, not spaced. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace and love. Stay tuned. There should be another episode that should be coming out some this week. As always, peace and love. I'm out.